Testing. 1, 2, 3. Are you ready, ski daddies? Let's rock this thing. This is O'Connor for the workshop in management accounting. Let's rock this thing. Okay, let's go. So the big thing about why chapter 12 and 19, because chapter 12 is introducing more. It's about strategy. Last week was all about strategy. Last week was all about the customer, and what was the big question that you had to ask to really understand what a firm's strategy is. Can I have someone? What was the big word, the big question that you asked?
Why?
Hello. What was the big question? Harisha?
So it was why customers come to buy your product.
Oh, that is exactly right. No, why do they come and buy? That's the easiest way to find out what a firm's strategy is. You can talk to the CEO and they say, well, our strategy is... No, the only real strategy is why customers come to you and buy your product again and again and again. That's the only real strategy you need to know. And so what we looked at last week was that, well, if we can recognize there's two generic strategies, there's product differentiation strategy and there's a cost leadership strategy, and, there's some in between, but that were the two big ones we're focusing on. Then we can try and map one company strategy with another one using some kind of a map, right? A customer preference map. Yeah. Wow. So does that work? Yes, it does, because the customer preference map delineates differences between companies on different attributes of why customers would buy the company's product or service, whether it's price, whether it's quality, whether it's technology, whether it's delivery, and a host of many, many, many other dimensions. Wow. So the big point is that in page 2 of your assignment, you really had to delineate the difference between the two factories in the audit, the case study audit that you are working on, and why customers will go to one company versus another. And that helps you to actually set out that customer preference map. So that was learn objective 1. Learn objective 2 was re-engineering. And then you probably think, wow, why we learn these long terms, we'll never get to use it. Yes, you will, because I showed you a real live example about how you can go into a factory. And I actually talk to buyers about this all the time, that you go to the factory, then why don't you be useful for once? Stop just thinking of what's in it for you and start thinking of how you can help the supplier or that factory that you're working with, and be curious and always think about why this. And that's what I did. And that was kind of like an improvement that I was suggesting about how they should mount the audio module onto a base, and so it doesn't rock when they're soldering or screwing. Okay. So that wasn't pure re-engineering, but that was a start of changing things in the organization. Whereas re-engineering was actually just pulling the whole factory down and just rebuilding it. Like I know there was one factory, the supplier I went to, where we actually they had several production lines across multiple floors. And so what they did was they moved out of that building and then put the production line onto the ground. And so therefore they re-engineered the production line from multiple floors, where you get to the end of the line, they put it onto a journey and then into the lift up to the next level, and then back onto the next line on the next level. Well, now then they moved into a new production warehouse and it was all on the ground, no multi-level, and then they can line out the whole production line from end to end. That's what we mean by real re-engineering. Re-engineering is actually changing how things are produced, just like the hoverboard manufacturer, where there was a workshop on one side and then there was the actual production on the other. And then finally, we looked at the balanced scorecard, and that is understanding the 4 perspectives of the balanced scorecard. And so which perspective was on the top? It was the financial perspective, right at the top. And why was it a pyramid at the top is smaller than the base, right? And the big idea that I wanted to convey to you is that it's smaller at the top because you have less control over the financial. It's greater at the bottom because you have more control over the training of your people, the development of the culture of the people, and the information systems that you have in your organization. And then also, it's also wider at the next level, not as much as the base, right? Organization needs its people first, right? But then there's the operations, and the operations is you have control of. You have control over the learning and growth, you have control over operations, but you have less control over the customer, and you have much less control over the financial. Of course, you can have little control of the customer in terms of their psychology, right? How do you control the customer? You just do advertising. Yeah, this lecture is brought to you by Golden. You see what I mean? And something like that, and that appears, and then I'm starting to brainwash the customer in terms of this is the brand you need to buy. That's how you can have control over the customer. Advertising and marketing is all about that. But technically, you really only have control at the learning and growth level and the operations level. And so the whole idea of the balanced scorecard was to get accounting major students, business students, to think beyond the financial. Neil, you mentioned thinking beyond the financial. What does that mean? Well, thinking beyond the financial is what we're going to look at today in a lot more detail. Wow, O'Connor, what does that mean? Are we at the top level or at the bottom? Well, we're actually going to go through all levels, but we're going to show you how we cannot control the top, but often it's the top that gets the attention of the senior managers. Why? Because they have to talk to shareholders. Why do shareholders care? Because they want return on their investments. Right. And so, how do you balance these tensions? The tension is shareholders want return on their investments, right? But the control is with the people and the operations in the organization, like, how do you get that balance between the two? It's a tension, right? Because shareholders don't know nothing about the operations. They just buy the product and they invest money in the organization and then they want a return. That's the financial, right? And so that's what senior management are focusing on. And that's what we're going to look at today. And we're going to show you some key examples, maybe show some videos, and we're going to have a Kahoot session. Yes, it's Kahoot again. I think we're going to have fun this morning. All right. So let's have a look at, remember, in week 7, reminding you last week, strategy about the story of success. Okay, so you find out the why. Remember the SMS. Well, you need to figure out the why. You need to measure it, and then you need to map the story in order to guide the measurement. And that's what you're doing. You're going to map the story in page 2-3 of your assignment. And then today we're going to introduce a little bit more about measurement. These mornings driving you crazy. Neil, can't just say measurement. No, it's measurement. All right, that's how you say it. You'll never forget that. So today, week 8, we're going to look at quality. Quality matters. Why? Because quality in some ways is the core of the internal perspective. You've got financial, customer. Now we've got internal perspective. And that's probably your biggest challenge when it comes to mapping your strategy for your assignment. And so while chapter 19 talks about quality, in many ways, chapter 19 is actually talking about the internal, it's really focusing on giving you a real insight into the internal processes in the organization. All right. So the chapter 12 and 19, of course, 14 looks at the customer, but we're not looking at today. But the big thing about customers, why are they buying your product? That's page 2 of your assignment, and that is your customer preference map. All right. So as I said here, wow, what have you got, Neil? What's this here? Well, just behind me here is learning and growth. And here is internal. This is the internal processes. And further around over here is the customer. And then right over there is the financial. So, there's different aspects of the scorecard. But look at the top. The key people that dictate an organization, the CEO, the CIO, the CFO, the board of directors, they are really the nexus between the operations of the organization and their shareholder, especially listed companies. So why do you say that, Neil? Because they are the nexus, they focus a lot on the financial measures. They don't focus so much on the customer or the internal processes or the learning and growth. That's the job of the operations manager. That's the job of the marketing department. That's the job of the sales department. That's the job of the human resources department. You hear me here? But when the operations manager knocks on the door, hi, Mr. CEO, can I talk to you about a machine problem? Can you give me go away? I don't want to know about any machine problem you're having. You're the operations manager. I'm the CEO. I've got to answer the shareholders. Go away, make the product that we have to make, and let's sell this stupid thing. Well, good product, all right, whatever it is. All right. So, the marketing manager knocks on the door, comes in. We need to talk about our advertising strategy for customers. What do I know about the advertising strategy of customers? Like, I'm the CEO, all right? I've got to answer the shareholders. I've got to make money for the shareholders. You go, I hired you to be the marketing person. I hired you to do the advertising. Go and execute. See, that's the modern day organization. So what's my point, Neil, is that the top managers, if you're going to get their attention, you need to be able to create a report that goes into a format that speaks the language of senior management. All right. And that's language is the financial. And so the question today is, well, how can you transfer a quality problem into a financial report? And then the production manager knock on the door with this quality report, and then suddenly you can get the attention of senior management. That's what the morning is about. This is what chapter 19 is about. So that's the big theme. All right. You don't produce reports for fun. You produce reports to get action, to get attention, to get change. Wow. Okay. O'Connor, let's move on this thing. But I want you to look out. Just look out for my little friend. My favorite is learning and growth here. Okay. Hi, how are you? Okay. Learning and growth here. My next favorite is the internal processes, and further is the customer, and then there's financial over there. So when the PowerPoint slides show up as in today's presentation, if you see any one of these little parts, you'll know which area of the balanced scorecard we are looking at. Okay, all right, and we're going to have fun. So let's move this thing. We have today we're going to look at quality measurement. Then we're not going to have time to look at time-related measurement in another unit, we could actually spend more on that area, but we're just focusing on learning objective 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. China Spy 1000. All right, so let's have a look at, let's see if this works. I think it doesn't work. All right, when I went to these 2 smartwatch factories, wait a minute, let me open up another PowerPoint slide that may work to my expectations. Factory output. Oh, I know what's not working. Let's have a look. So let's have a look at these 2 smartwatch manufacturers. Have a look at the one at the top. But why did it come through here? Right.
它表带不是有那个蓝牙收入吗？上路不提前，不是贴标。什么意思？收入？收入就是蓝牙，它这可以接受蓝牙那个东西。
They're making smartwatches.
在表带上的。
没有刷。
They were checking or what?
你们是检测还是说把这个
That
装进去
lady
啊？
came out of the
我现在拿过去
administrative
就是贴
office.
标，
I
然后
want you to see this.
可以。
All right. Look, that's administration here. Can you see that? She is walking out with a product that has not yet been tested, has not yet been packed. And so we asked her, like, factories are supposed to keep a clean room. You know, one of the factories has a very good clean room in your assignment. So when you see these things, you ask questions. Why are you doing what you're doing? There's always a reason. You don't just scold them, say, you cannot do that. This is wrong. No, that's not how you approach when you're working with suppliers or working with a factory to try and get improvement. You have to think a bit more strategic. So you ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? And that's what we're doing. Oh, so what's this? Where does this come from?
The assembly line.
But why did it come through here?
你们为什么这个？
Again?
不是，它这个是收入。就是它表带不是有那个蓝牙收入吗？收入过去贴标。
什么意思？收入？
收入就是蓝牙，它这可以接受蓝牙那个东西。在表带上的。
没有刷。
They were checking or what?
你们是检测还是说把这个装进去啊？检测。
我现在拿过去就是贴标，然后贴。
Yeah, so what they were doing, they were actually testing the Bluetooth signal of these watches, and they didn't want that testing to interrupt with all the signals and wireless signals going on in the factory. So they want to go somewhere separate so they can clearly test. But the problem is that they took it to the administrative area that was not clean. So you can see how factories, if they're not properly supervised or have the proper procedures in place, they will improvise. They will do stuff that maybe cause the product to be out of control. Out of control meaning that you have a quality problem. And so that's one factory. And then the factory at the bottom. Yes. We can see another factory at the bottom, and they're both making smartwatch. So which one do you think is the better factory? Have a look at the one at the top or the one at the bottom. And this is something I want you to think about when we're thinking about quality here. In the chat room, the factory at the top or the factory at the bottom, which one do you think? Let's have a look in the chat room. I want you all just to, you can participate a little bit here. We've got one person in the chat. Anyone else? Which one do you think is the better factory? correct.
Normally they will like get familiar for 2 procedures.
Some of you are saying on the bottom, that's excellent. Okay. All right.
And this is the quality control form.
Sometimes just by looking at a video, sometimes hard to compare, right? I'm challenging you. Not easy to say that you know everything about 2 videos that I show you immediately, but I just want you to make a judgment and thinking about why when you go to the factory. And I should show another part of the top factory, but I don't have that video here right now. I have it in my other collection, can show later. But the point I want to make here is that the one at the bottom, in the end, we actually found out that the one at the bottom was better. And part of the reason was that they had worked with a Japanese brand that on other products in the past. And as a result of working with the Japanese, they held the factory to very high quality standards. And that actually overflowed into this other smartphone product that they were making on the day we were there. And it's pretty clean, this factory at the bottom. And they were just making smartwatches, just like what you see here. Wow. And the one at the top, less than 6 months after we had left that factory, it was gone, like gone, empty, just like that. You could still buy smartwatches from the companies, but they were outsourcing the manufacturing of the smartwatch. And so these are the things that you need to be quite aware of when you are visiting factories and not just wasting precious time. Let's just have a look at a little bit more of these smartwatch ones. Wait a minute. How come? Here we go again. So this is a storeroom.
Yeah.
Or receiving materials. Receiving materials.
所有的那个原材料是存
在
在
那个仓库
the packaging before
仓库
shipping.
是不能进的
we cannot get access to.
Just and helping you on the assignment, I want you to think about when you're watching these videos, there's a kind of a process. So, where we first were in these videos, we're in the storeroom where we actually to receiving materials. And so quality actually starts by receiving materials and checking the materials that are being received. And then you can start to think about how the materials are delivered to the factory line in order to manufacture what we're making. As you can see, the one at the bottom, they have very well set out details for every worker on each of these stages. And you can see, let me just show you. All right. I don't like that with all but right there, you got that. And that explains, there's the QC sheet for what's been going on during that day as the factory was making its goods. The factory at the top, that's the one that you said, that we said didn't exist. Oh, very interesting.
Testing.
You're controlling the input materials. Okay, so point I want to make is that you can see things in the factory, and it takes a lot of visits to really get a sense of what's going on. But you can pick up things very, very quickly when you're walking around the factory, and very hard, as a lot of companies are finding out today in the COVID pandemic times, that they cannot visit the factory, and it's created a lot of uncertainty. It's created a lot of angst among boardrooms of companies around the world, to know that they have a little bit less transparency now of their supply chains, and they are actually trying to figure out, well, how do we get people into the factory so we can monitor? And there's lots of different solutions being put towards that, and that's like having third-party proxies. That is, you pay for someone that's already in the country to actually go and visit the factory and to try and be the eyes and ears for a company that is in on the other side of the world. We're talking about quality here. Remember, this chapter 19 is about quality. And I've already, the conversation so far is we're looking at quality control in the factory. And while we're not teaching you factory operations, but I just want to show you real examples of, well, quality isn't just a final check of the product before the product is packed into a container, then shipped off to another country, right? Quality begins with the raw materials coming into the factory, as you saw in the previous one. You right at the start, we were talking about raw materials here. So right at the start here, there were
product will
this.
here. This is like defect goods.
Yes.
When we're looking here, before we go into
Before we go
into the assembly area, there's a QC department, but there was a raw materials area. When we looked at, if we go to the end here, let me
Yeah. This is just
这个已经是成
you can see behind this guy here, there's boxes and boxes of raw materials. So they'll open those boxes, and then materials inside are then used for the assembly. But, some factories have a very sophisticated area where they actually store the raw materials before they're assembled. And others, they'll just put it into the same area where they're doing assembly. So, quality begins with raw materials, then quality next begins with the assembly, and it begins like we showed you last week. You need to actually pay attention to the quality control system that is in the factory, and that is not always clear. And if you don't do that, this is what you end up with. You end up with a dog on top of a bird. So it's very, very clear. All right, and I'll tell you a short story. A friend of mine, I remember Mike Bellamy told me this, my partner in China Sourcing Academy. He was instructed to help with one of these clients that had to move a factory from one area in China to another, and government rezones lands, and they'll send you a notice. You've got 60 days to vacate this area and you need to move to another area of the province or the city. And this factory was in the process of moving. This factory was making teddy bears. And if you think about when you're making teddy bears, what the most important thing you need to be aware of is that when you're making teddy bears, you're using sewing machines. You're actually sewing. You're putting stuffing inside, then you're sewing to, close it up. Like, what do we mean? What do we mean by teddy bear? I'll show you. There we are. All right. So here we have a Gudetama. Okay. So my wife got this, those games that you play where you move the claw along and you pick it up. Well, we got this on the weekend. So that's pretty cool, huh? Anyway, so in order to make something like this, then you've got to sew around here, right? And then you've got to sew around here and sew around here and around there, and you got stuffing inside, etc. Right? So I want you, when you are sewing, you are breaking. Factories have hundreds of sewing machines, and they are breaking needles all the time. Like literally, you're breaking dozens, if not hundreds of needles every week. And then what do you have when you break a needle? You just replace it. You put another needle in the machine. That's ordinary course of apparel, knitwear type factories. Well, what happened with this factory, and what's very important when you are making a product from that process, that before you pack the product into the box to ship, to ship to you, you actually put it through an X-ray machine, like it's a metal detector machine, right? Why? Because you want to make sure there's no needle stuck inside. And because this factory was moving to another province, they actually stopped that process. And then they gathered up all of the partially manufactured teddy bears and then shipped them to the other factory for the final processing, and then they were packed. And so happened that there was a needle left inside a teddy bear, and fortunately the buyer found that needle. This is in the other country, and got word back to the factory that, you know, they made this mistake. But can you imagine, you know, going to sleep each night and then you put that next to your face and then there's a needle there and just boom, or you put it near your eye and needle, boom, like how like you can imagine that happening, right? So like that's quality. Class. Quality is not just making sure that the paint on the car is perfect, all right? Quality is making sure that bad things do not happen, right? The needle that was in the teddy bear, all right? Like the teddy bear still looks nice, right? Okay, it serves its purpose, and you look at it and say, oh, this is beautiful. All right, it serves its purpose, but there's a needle inside, right? And so what would happen if the needle got stuck into your baby or child or stuck in their eye? Like, you know, that things can happen. So I want you to think, when we start to talk about quality and we start to try and think about the costs of quality, yes, there's the costs of making sure that that other factory, when it was testing the Bluetooth of the watches, that they didn't take it out of the clean room area, so there was no dust on the watch. Like that's sort of an internal quality check, right? Also, when you're making the teddy bears, right, you should go through a metal detector to take out, you know, make sure there's no needles lodged inside the teddy bear, right? That's an internal quality check. And if you don't do that, then you can get external quality problems like a lawsuit because the needle scarred a child or something like that because the needle was left in the soft toy. Hi, you can go back now. Okay, bye. All right. So I just want you to realize that this is real stuff. Like this is just not an engineering and operational thing. When products get into the hands of a customer, so dangerous things can happen. And when they happen, then that's a huge cost to any company. So if we want to compete on quality, then we need to think about the following. First of all, there is, this is kind of the theory, but there's two big types of quality failure. And I would ask you now, if you can put into your chat room, do you think the needle being left in here was a design quality failure, or was it a conformance quality failure? I want you to think about that. What do we mean? Well, a conformance quality failure is when the performance of the product meets the expected performance of the product. Okay, got nothing to do with the customer. It's all about, okay, here's my phone and it's supposed to run at, 1.8 gigahertz in the cycle, the CPU. Well, then I will test that phone, all right, because it's got a Qualcomm Snapdragon chip inside and it's going to run at those hertz. I'll test that. Does it run at that speed? And if it doesn't, then that's a conformance quality failure. The customer may never know whether a product conforms to its design or not. That's the big difference. Whereas a design quality failure is when I see a problem on the phone, that is, maybe the display has a bit of a shadow over here, and then it shows white over here, then suddenly that's a design quality failure because it doesn't meet what I expect of this product. The needle being left in here in the end is kind of like a design quality failure because the customer, it's going to affect the customer satisfaction. The customers do not expect a needle to be left in a soft toy. So I want you to think about design is, a critical thing from the eyes of the customer, and and that changes over time. Why? Because customer expectations about your promise for your product changes over time. Whereas conformance is more, okay, does the product meet the engineering standards that you have set for that product? And the customer may never know what those standards are. Okay, because customer is actually looking at that product's use for what you bought that product for. All right. So that it's more of a functionality type standard. So I want you to keep in mind, design quality is in the eyes of the customer. Conformance quality is in the eyes of the engineer. All right, which is internal. One's external, one's internal. So there's a little bit of theory for today, but let's move on a little bit further. All right, and there's some more details there. Okay, so remember what I said at the start. The CEO at the top, the CIO, the CFO, they care about the financial. But what did we learn last week? The financial, we really have little control over that. We have a lot more control over the learning and growth and the internal operations, but less control over the customer, even less control over the financial outcomes. So what can we do to get the attention of senior management if we want to replace the machine in the factory, if we want to re-engineer the factory operations? What can we do? Well, we can create a cost of quality report. And so there's two things I want you to take you through this morning. I want to show you how to do the cost of quality report. And number two, how you go one step further to actually put together a report for a comparison of two initiatives that can re-engineer or help improve the operations in a factory. Why do you create these reports? To get the attention of senior management, so then they can give you the funds to make the changes that you need to make. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So first of all, there are 4 categories of quality costs: prevention costs, appraisal, internal failure, and external failure. So in the chat room, can I ask all of you now to tell me the needle that was found in the teddy bear? Hi, right? That needle that was found inside, all right, was that an internal failure or an external failure cost? Remember, needle was put inside, and then what we're saying it, the customer finds it, and then it scratches the child, or it scratches your face, remember? And then suddenly you have to go to the hospital, and now you got a scratch on your face for life. You're scarred, all right? Is that an internal failure or an external failure? Okay, so Brian says external, Divi external, and Winban external. Okay, all right. Any more? Nails internal, Weibing internal. Okay. I want you to think about it, that in some ways, internal failure costs are when you actually detect the good that is not worthy of being shipped. But if we don't know there's a needle inside and then we ship it, then obviously it doesn't get classed as an internal failure. It now becomes a possible external failure if a customer finds it, and then they create problems. Number one, maybe they're not injured, but maybe the customer goes to the media and says, oh, look what I found, a needle in my teddy bear, a needle in my Guatemala, right? There's a needle I found in there. Wow. Okay. Like, do you think customers will come back and buy more of these after that media report? Like, that's an external failure. Maybe there's a lawsuit. If I get it scratched and I had to go to hospital, then I sue the company. Do you think the company is going to suffer? Of course, the company will suffer. All right. The reputation, there's going to be opportunity costs of future sales. There's opportunity costs of the fact that they may not be able to make as much, like because demand has gone down. Now all the machinery is, all the knitting, sewing machines are idle. So all that investment is not being used. These are all opportunity costs resulting from external failure. We're going to talk about opportunity costs later, but I just want you to picture this, that bad things happen if you allow quality problems to get to number 4, that is the external failure. All right, if you can catch it before something is shipped, like the metal detector, oh, there's a needle in this one, you find it, you pull it out, okay, now we can ship, then we're good to go, right? So maybe that one that we found a needle in, okay, we discard that, like we don't even pull the needle out and then ship it. We actually put it in a reject box. Then that becomes an internal failure cost, all right? But the moment it gets packed and then shipped and into the hands of the customer, and if it fails, then it becomes an external failure cost. And the last thing that any company wants to have is an external failure. Always want to try and stop a bad product before it is shipped to the customer. Okay. And then prevention and appraisal. Prevention is more setting up the assembly lines so things work well. Appraisal is more inspection and auditing and making sure that the products are tested well. In some ways, the factory audit that you're looking at for the assignment is kind of like a prevention cost, because the client is asking me to go in and look at the factory to see, is the factory fit to make something properly for what the client wants? Okay. All right. So now I think there's some good examples here of, what these mean. Now, remember, at the end of the day, why do we create a report? We create a report because we want to get the attention of CFO, CIO, and CEO. So what we're going to do, let's have a break for 5 minutes. When we come back, then we've got 3 things to do. Number 1, we're going to produce a cost of quality report. Number 2, we're going to look at an example of how you can create a report that helps to quantify the costs and benefits of 2 initiatives used to improve operations in a factory. And then there's the 2 big reports that we want to look at. And then we're going to do a Kahoot session, and then we're done. Now, I'm just making a note here. In the next 3 to 5 minutes, I'll get the code for international students. Okay. And the other thing I need to do is give you the link so you can give feedback on today's session. All right. So I'll see you back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Oops. Hi, everyone. Hi. Can we just have a hello over the microphone, video, whatever?
Sir.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Once more. Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How are we doing? Let's have a look. We've got 2 reports to do. And just to understand how the following, I'll just share the screen with you. But I want to show you how, remember, at the end of the day, we want to get the attention of senior management. So let's just have a look at swap and just share the screen, and then we're on to it. Interesting. Okay. All right. So the prevention, appraisal, internal, external. Now you know that at all you want to minimize external failure. Internal failure and external failure create huge costs for the organization. So the idea is that you try and invest in prevention and appraisal in order to minimize internal failure and definitely external failure. External failure can create the demise of your organization. So this is something you want to avoid at all costs. And so, you know, if you're studying economics, then you can think about how the Japanese originally thought of the idea that you can get, they were the first to think about that it's not like that quality costs more. To get good quality, it actually pays, it's an investment rather than a cost. The Japanese were the first to see quality control as an investment rather than as a cost, because what they thought about is that if we invest, and we minimize the failure costs, then actually the optimum quality level in some ways can be next to zero. We can actually get, the actual reject level, we can get it right down to zero. And actually we can start to get returns on the quality investment because people believe in the product and that people believe in the brand. Your promise of that product is top quality. And so over time, the Japanese came to think about quality as an investment, whereas in the West, up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, are thinking about, quality, that costs money. Why do we invest more in quality? You know, there's a trade-off that we have to make. So there are different perspectives when we're coming into that. And so I want to look at, here's an example of this is an example out of the textbook. And what we're going to do is show you how a quality cost report is produced. And just here, I just want to highlight a few things. So number one, what are we making? We are making photocopy machines. Photocopy machines, they're still big business, even though this is an old example. But what's the point here with the photocopy machines? There are different costs involved in making sure that the quality of the photocopy machines produced are of good quality. And so up until this week or week before, Dr. Pushpa was talking to you about direct costs and indirect costs and activity-based costs. And so why did you allocate costs that way? You're allocating costs in the earlier chapters for the purposes of producing a report so you can make a decision whether we make a product or not, make or buy, cost, volume, profit analysis. We did activity-based costing so you can decide whether it's worth making product A or product B. And so, you know, the decision was more about, do we make a product or not? Do we add an extra feature? Do we add an extra feature to the product? So for example, do we add this little thing at the front of our little Gudetama? Is that how you say it? All right. Do we add this on the front? And if we add that, then the activity-based costing would tell us that, well, that's going to actually double the cost of making this unit. Why? Because now we have to do sewing here, we have to do sewing here. And even after the first unit is made, then we've got to put these together. We've got to make sure it all lines up, and there's a lot more labor involved and a lot more processes involved. It actually doubles the cost of the product. And maybe at the end, we can only sell that product for another 20%. Right. That's what you were learning in the early weeks and the early chapters of Horngren. What we're doing now, the decision is different now. The decision now is not whether we make the product or not whether we change the whole design of the product for the customer or not. The decision now is how we improve the processes in the organization. And the decision now is, how do we actually improve the inspection costs and the appraisal costs, so therefore we can minimize internal and external failure. Right. So see how management accounting is all about getting information so we can make better economic decisions. Right. So when Dr. Pushpa was talking to you about indirect costs and direct costs and activity-based costs, the decision was all, when we're allocating those costs, it was focused on, do we make a product or not? And do we change the way the product is featured or not from the point of view of the customer? But now we're looking at, well, do we change the process of making the product so we can have a better quality outcome? See the difference, the different decisions. All right. So in order to make a decision about a quality control process or a quality control initiative, we now need to use all that information you learnt about what is direct, what is indirect, and activity-based costing. We need to allocate that across different groups of costs. So now we need to allocate costs according to, is this prevention costs? Is it appraisal, internal, external? All right. And so that's all we're doing for the report. And so as you learnt in the past, you will have a cost allocation rate. And there we have a cost of control report. This is an initial one that we're putting together. And I just want to bring your attention to prevention costs here. Okay, so we can actually draw prevention costs here. Remember, there's the prevention, all right? And then we have appraisal costs, and then we have internal failure costs, and then we have external failure. Remember, we want to minimize these costs. And the whole idea is that we want to invest more here in order to minimize these costs here. That's all we're trying to do. So, you know, like the needle in the teddy bear example, like external failure, you want to have zero failure externally in the customer's hands, because lawsuit, reputation risk, you know, things go wrong, your company can die. All right. So, internal failure is better than external, but prevention and appraisal is better than internal failure. You see what I mean? So you want to make sure that you invest on the top two in order to minimize the bottom two. So that's what chapter 19 is about. All right. And why? Because then you can go to the CEO, CFO to demonstrate why we need to invest in internal prevention and appraisal costs in order to minimize internal failure and external failure costs. Because now we want to put this information into a cost of quality report. Remember, if you put something into a financial report, then you can get the attention of the CFO, the CEO, the CIO. Remember, they're not going to listen to you saying, oh, we want another machine. They want to know, okay, if we invest in another machine, will that help reduce our internal failure costs and external failure costs? And if you can show that in a report, then you get the attention of the senior management that make economic decisions for your operations. So that's what we're doing here. Excuse me, please. So let's have a look. We're going to come back to the photocopy manufacturer. Remember, we've got to do 2 reports. Okay, let's do the first report. 916. Osborne produces cell phone equipment. Like, this is pretty old. This is a Motorola Razr that was released in about 2005, a long time ago. And then they had a quality improvement program, and then there's a cost report that is shown. So I'll show you what a cost report looks like. And what I'm going to do is turn this pen off. And there are 3 questions. For each period, calculate the ratio of each of the cost areas. Remember, prevention, appraisal, and then we've got internal failure, external failure. So that's a report. So calculate the, how the costs are allocated among those 4. And then based on the results, would you conclude that the quality program has been successful? So over time, in order to find out if a program is successful, you've got to look at time, right? You cannot just do it one period. And then number 3, there's a question about the opportunity costs. So what are opportunity costs? Remember, opportunity costs are things that are likely to come out of the external failure. That is, an opportunity cost occurs when customers do not buy your product again because of your reputation risk. And then that flows on to you not having enough demand. Then that flows on to you having excess capacity. These are all opportunity costs of that can result of not having a properly quality control program in place. So an opportunity cost is sort of the alternative. It's the alternative worst case scenario. So that's what it means. So let's just make a note there. Opportunity cost is kind of a alternative scenario. Okay, it's an alternative worst case scenario. If you do not have prevention, you do not have appraisal costs, and you don't have internal failure, and you get external failure, and then the customer sues you, and then you lose half your business, then that's what we mean by the opportunity costs. So let's have a look at what that means. And that's something that you cannot, that's something that you sort of got, you have to try and predict, but you cannot verify. You can only assess that this is the likely opportunity costs. So I just want to show you, can I just bring your attention to this, and then we go to the next report. If you apply what you learned in activity-based costing, the internal indirect costs, direct costs, and then if you were told that, well, here are all the prevention and appraisal costs, here are all the internal and external failure costs, Okay. And this is a report that doesn't show you, do you buy product A or product B? But this report is to show senior management about the importance of investing in machine maintenance, supplier training, design reviews. Okay. And if we invest more in here, what do we mean? Well, can we invest instead of 20,000? Can we invest 100,000? All right. Will that improve? Instead of investing 50,000 in design reviews, can we invest 240,000 in design reviews? All right. And so can that, in other words, can we move from 500,000 in investment here to 750,000? That's basically, you would go to senior management with a proposal. Mr. CEO, can you got a minute? What do you want? What do you want? You knock on my door again? Just go down to the factory and work on the machine. Yeah, but I've got this idea. I've got this idea that will actually save, us. We don't want to have a needle in our soft toys that we're making. Oh, you got my attention. What are you talking about? I say, well, these are external failure costs. We want to reduce our external failure costs. We want to reduce our internal failure costs. I've got an idea. We need you to give the approval so we can invest more in supplier training, more in design reviews. And if we can do this, then over the next several quarters, I can guarantee you that this extra $250,000 investment in design reviews, supplier training, machine maintenance, if we can do more of this, then we can actually reduce our external failure costs. Wow, really? Wow, what do you mean? Show us the report. Well, here's the report here. I see what you got here. O'Connor. So at the moment, our external failure costs are at $750,000. Like, can we reduce that? He said, well, Mr. CEO, if you invest, if you do what I suggest, like more supplier training, more design reviews, I think we could get our external failure costs from $750,000 down to 250 into 1 quarter. We can reduce it by $500,000 in the next 3 quarters. You can do that. Wow. Is it, what's your calculations? Well, here's my report here. Here's my calculations. And this is what I, based on history and our factory operations, this is what we predict. I see this. I see you've thought through this. I see that you are talking my language. You are talking financial language to me, and I can see the benefit. Ching ching. I can see the benefits for our bottom line. Ching ching. I can see the benefits for our shareholder and what the shareholder will think. Shareholders will think about what we're doing. Okay. Mr. Operations Manager. I'll give you the okay. Yes. How much do you want for supplier training? Look, we just need $80,000 more than what you have been giving us each 6 months. Okay, done. All right, you got it. What else do you need, operations manager? Well, I need another 150,000 for design reviews. Okay, you got it. There you go. Wow. And so this is the conversation that you can have when you put information, accounting information, into a cost of quality report. And so, class. Notice when I'm teaching, and I talk a lot, but I'm trying to get you to get the feeling of, why are we doing this? Why are you learning chapter 19? All right, because I really like the how. You do some exercises and you get to understand how to do this report perfectly. That's the how. But the why, I'm just showing you, why would you actually produce this report in the first place? Because it's, you don't want to do anything that doesn't have a why. And that, I'm very big on that. And this is something I want you to take away from today's lecture. So I don't want you to feel that, well, O'Connor, you didn't properly explain fully how to do every number in the report. Well, we don't have time to do all of that, but it's very much the the same way that you would do activity-based costing, where you start to apply costs to a particular cost object. In this case, the cost object are the 4 different cost groupings. That is prevention costs, appraisal costs, internal failure, and external failure. Now, remember the factory audit report as we go through, you're doing for your project, we, ask questions about some of what they're doing with prevention and appraisal. We ask questions about their assembly line. We actually get to see, the state of equipment in the factory. So we get a sense of the likelihood that there's going to be an internal failure, or the likelihood that there's going to be an external failure. You can see that it's all connected there. And buyers around the world are paying millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on people like me to go into factories so that buyers can have an assessment of, do we buy from factory A or factory B? Exactly what I did for a buyer a couple of years ago. All right. And so then we can say, has the quality program been successful? Well, total quality costs have gone down, external failure costs have gone down, et cetera, et cetera. That's the first question. But further, and then you can talk about quality costs, improved designs, et cetera. And then the other big question is about opportunity costs. And here's another big thing I want you to take away this morning. And this may be in the Kahoot. So pay attention. We're going to pay the Kahoot soon. All right. Sales. I want you to think about opportunity costs. First, it is the sales and market share. Like if a customer finds a needle in that product, right? Oh, can you imagine? You've got your teddy bear next to you as you go to sleep. Right. And then there's a needle. You move and your eye goes there, and then needle. Eye gone. Blind. Like bad things happen. All right. And then, whether, the customer negligent in using the product, you can say all you like. All right. But what happens is, word gets out in social media, then the media, and then your reputation. So the opportunity costs are about, reputation damage, which you can't quantify, very hard to quantify, but it's going to affect sales. Sales go down. That means you start, in the past, maybe you competed on quality or your design, but now you have to compete on price, because now you're seen as not making what you promise. And then the opportunity costs, they're not recorded in the accounting system, because the other thing that when demand goes down and suddenly you cannot sell as many as you want to sell, suddenly all the machines you have in your factory are idle. So therefore your investment is not fully utilized. So the sales, your price goes down. So your sales revenue goes down, number one. Your margins are decreased because now customers don't see you as the best product in the range of products that they're looking at buying, right? And then finally, your investment in machinery, your investment in capacity is not fully utilized. So those are the 3 big opportunity costs: top line revenue, margins, and utilization of your investment. That's what I mean by opportunity costs. And they are costs that are very hard to quantify, because that's if a worst case scenario happens. Okay. So exciting stuff. Let's move on to the last report, and then we're going to do the Kahoot. Will help you review what we've learned today. And as we're going through this, I want you to pay attention to the non-financial measures. Remember, in page 4 of your big project, you have to think about, well, what measures would I use for learning and growth? What measures would I use for operations? What measures would I use for customer? What measures financial? You already know that. All right. Costs, revenue, profits, financial is all taken care of. Customer, they're pretty easy, like customer satisfaction, the market share, the number of defective units shipped to customers, like that is an external failure, right? Measure, right? Number of customer complaints, probably because of external failure. Product fail rates, in some ways that's an internal failure. And so it's more, halfway between customer and internal. And then you've got delivery delays, on-time deliveries that can affect the customer experience as well. Remember, if the customer preference map says that on-time delivery is very, very important, then you better be measuring it in your strategy map. Are you with me here? There's a linkage between what you say your company you're looking at in page 2, customer preference map, is point in page 3, your strategy map, and then in page 4, you are measuring those items clearly in the strategy map. All right, so that's the customer satisfaction. 3 technique. Now let's go to internal, right? So financial, customer, and now we've got internal. We've got control charts, Pareto diagrams, cause effect diagrams. These, we're going to skip over these very, very fast, but I just want you to be aware of that. There are 3 different types of ways of diagnosing problems. And I remember when Apple, remember my friend at Apple was telling me about when they were making the iPhone over a dozen years ago in the early stages, and they found that at the end of the production line, the 90 steps in the production line of the iPhone, there was a little cloud forming in the top left-hand side of the screen. And it took them 2 to 4 weeks to find out what was going on. And what they found out was that the Gorilla Glass that came from Corning that was put onto the TFT module, remember back then there were 3 parts. There was the LCM module that gives you the picture that you look at. There's a TFT module, which is your touch screen and registers the capacitive touch. And then there's a Gorilla Glass that goes on top. Wow, those 3 things are glued together and very, very clean. And you actually see that in one of the factory videos you're doing for the assignment, where you've got the factory worker actually cleaning the glass before they put them together. Anyway, when that glass was delivered, what they found out, it took them over 2 weeks to find out the problem, was that Corning had a little protective strip on all the glass that was delivered. And that protective strip was held to the glass by a little adhesive. And that adhesive actually chemically react with the TFT module when they put it together in the production process, and it created a little cloud. Well, my friend at Apple I asked him, how did you figure this out? Well, he said, well, we go back to basics. We went and did the following. We actually did a cause and effect diagram like this, and we just routinely went through every possible scenario of what happened, and then we found out what happened. So, this is textbook stuff here, like it's in chapter 19, but what I'm telling you is that that's a real live example that Apple used to problem solve a problem in their production. Wow, O'Connor, these are really used in real operations in the world? Yes, they are. Yes, and actually used. So I don't want to teach you stuff that I haven't seen in the real world. The other things that we won't spend too much time on, this is a control chart. And what matters here is that the 2 of these are in control. The middle one is out of control. And so there's always some variance. Remember, quality is more about reliability rather than perfection. That is consistency. And so the first and third graph of outcomes of a production process are within controls, whereas the middle one is out of control. And that's a control chart. And then finally, a Pareto diagram. That is, if you're going to problem solve, let's just look at the one that is causing most of the problems. That is, copies are fuzzy and unclear. So let's just go to the internal business perspective, and we're going to create a report, because now I'm in the photocopier manufacturing company, and we want to problem solve and present management with 2 alternatives to improve the processes in the production facility. So that we've got to create a report. Remember, if we don't have a financial report, we can't get managers' attention, right? So I've already got their attention first, saying, oh, I agree with you. You need to spend on training and defects. But now maybe it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. That is, I want to invest in machinery or want to invest in re-engineering. So now we have to create a little bit more detailed report. Just keep in mind here, we've got non-financial measures that are very, very important. And some of these might be relevant to your assignment, and in terms of defective products, average repair time, percentage of research, reworked products, or number of different types, design, etc. Remember again, just remind you again, there's prevention costs, appraisal, internal, external. And the best way of looking at this is if it is a timeline that would, if you spend more on prevention, then you may not have to spend as much on appraisal. And if you spend more on prevention appraisal, and then you get less internal failure and then less external failure. It's kind of like a cause and effect. So just, keep that in mind. There's no, and that's the whole idea of a cost of quality report, is to invest in this area. So what I'm going to show you is how to put a report together that actually goes a little bit more detail. When management say, oh, I get you, spend more on training and more on this, and it's going to improve internal and external failure outcomes. I get that. But then you say management, but I need a $500,000 investment. I need $1 million investment or more in this machine or re-engineering. Then management going to say, well, hang on, O'Connor, you better go away and give me a little bit more detail of what you are, planning here. All right. I just cannot take your word for it. I get this idea of connection between prevention and external failure. All right. I get that. But now you don't just want another 100,000, 150,000 training. You want me to invest $500,000 or $1 million in a re-engineering. Like, I need more. I need something more. You're with me here, right? So this is why this second report is we go to a little bit more detail on two scenarios to show management that, well, if you invest in A, this is the benefits. You invest in B, this is the benefits, and this is what I recommend. Remember, the whole theme of today is that if we want to get the attention of senior management about operational internal processes and the learning and growth, then we need to put reports into a financial language. That's what chapter 19 is about, okay? And there's some measurements at the employee, the learning growth level. So let's have a look at this problem. So there are two solutions that we are proposing for Photon's copier problem. That is, electronically inspect and test frames before production starts, or let's redesign and strengthen the frame. So that's solution 1, and then that's solution 2. All right. And so what we're going to do is create a report to show one way or the other, and then how that will result in improved internal failure, improved external failure costs. Remember, that's what we're doing. Remember in chapter 5, in earlier stages in Management Accounting 1, the whole object was the product, that the cost object. We were attaching cost to product. Why? Because we want to know, how much do we sell the product for? We need to price the product. Or do we make product A or product B, right? Oh, product A is going to return us more margin than product B, so then we make product A. That was the decision. The decision in chapter 19 is, do we invest more in prevention? Do we invest more in appraisal? And if we're going to do more on prevention, then what can you justify idea A or justify initiative B, or 1 or 2 in this case? That's what we're doing. These are still cost objects, so we've got to allocate costs to these different objectives and what are the benefits. And then we give that report to management, and then they make a decision. O'Connor, you too much on the why, but the why we're doing something is so critical. Okay. There's the opportunity cost. Remember, just to remind you that opportunity cost is all about the margin. It's all about the top line revenue. It's all about lost production capacity opportunity. All right. So here we have our two. Here's our report that we go to management with. So number one, we can inspect further incoming frames, or we can redesign frames. All right. So there's our two. Okay. Now, obviously, I want you to think about above this red line are the money. That's the money you are asking from senior management, right? If you don't get this money, then you cannot do 1 or 2, right? Okay, that's all we're doing. So for 1, we're asking for, Mr. CEO, can you give me 400,000? What do you want that money for? Well, we need to do some more inspection and we need to do more testing. Well, what's the benefit of that? I sign up 400,000. What's the payback? Well, okay. The payback is the following: we can get savings in rework costs. We estimated that, rework, we can cut it down by nearly $1 million. We can cut customer support by 40,000 because customers are not coming back for problems and things like that. We can reduce transportation costs. Wow. And we can reduce warranty repair. You mean that external failure can go down? Like if we have less warranty repair costs, maybe then the opportunity costs are going to be lower. Exactly. So the total contribution margin from additional sales. So therefore, if we spend 400,000, we can get back all of this amount. And so the net benefit is about 3 million. Wow, 3 million. Wow, I'll sign that. Where do I sign? No, stop there. Miss Sarah, I want to talk to you about more. I've got another option. Now I think might be even better. Really? You got something better than this? Yeah, but you need to give me a little bit more money. What are you talking about? Well, here's the calculations I've done. Here's the calculations. And well, this is a little bit more extensive. This is a re-engineering. It's not just paying more people to do things. We've got to redesign the frame. What do you mean redesign? I thought we did that a few years ago. Yeah, but things have moved on and we've got new ways of engineering things now. Well, how much is it going to cost? Just, can you get to the point? I'm busy. All right. Well, it's going to cost 300,000 for engineering and 160,000 for design engineers. What 460,000? Why can't we just do inspection and testing? Like another 60,000? What are we paying more than that for? Yeah, but hang on, just wait there. Look, there's different savings here. We can actually get even more savings out of this if we do this second way. And in the net difference is going to be nearly more than $750,000. We can actually get more if we do this second option. Wow. O'Connor, you've done your homework, and I like it how you speak my language. Like I don't know anything about what you're doing down on that factory floor. I wouldn't even know a machine if I fell over one, but you seem to know what the design and testing and engineering and what's needed in that. And but I really love it how you put these two options into it's given me financial clarity about what's the payoff for our company. And okay, well, O'Connor, I see this. Well, since you've done such a great job in putting this together, so which option should we do? And so thanks for asking me, and really appreciate you've given me an hour in this meeting when you only had 10 minutes to spare at the start. Well, O'Connor, I'll give you an hour because you've spent the time to put this problem into my language, into the financial language. Well, okay. Well, what I suggest is you know, if you ask me, you know, I'm the expert engineering operations. If you ask me, I think we should go with option 2, because we're going to be $750,000 better off at the end of 12 or 18 months. Okay, well, let's do it. Okay, case closed. Go ahead, done. Thank you, CEO. Thank you. And class, all right. So that's what chapter 19 is about. Chapter 19 is about, like, go back and do some of these exercises to allocate. Remember, chapter 19, the cost object has changed. The cost object has changed to initiatives. It's changed to a way of putting accounting numbers into a report, so then you can justify investments to make improvements in the operations of the organization. Wow. O'Connor, why didn't you write chapter 19 instead? Well, I don't have time to write everything, but I can explain it to you better. All right. So it's okay. All right. And that's what it's about. So when you go back and you have to do some of these cost of quality reports, and then just understand from today's lecture, it's about the why. It's about how you can put a operation problem into a financial language so you can justify why a company should do decision A or decision B. And if a report doesn't help make a decision making process better, then maybe it's not worth having a report at all. Okay, so that's the big thing. So let's get on to Kahoot. And I think it's very important that that's the big takeaway from today. And just want to, you know, summarize the estimated costs. You've got the cost savings from those two opportunities, and then you've got the contribution, that the benefits that are coming. And that's kind of like an opportunity cost type prediction, that, you know, extra contribution margin that will come by reducing those opportunity costs. And so in the end, you know, that's the benefits of cost of quality, right? That's the big thing I want you to take away this morning. A little bit more chaptery today. Let me just discard that. Okay. And we're going to play Kahoot and finish up today. So how many are you? Hands up if you, how was the lecture so far? Hello? How was it? Are you still there? Hello, can you have your microphones on or something? Give me feedback. Are you still there? Hello, how was today so far?
Great.
Hi.
Sir.
Okay, you got one. Okay, thumbs up. Good. Okay, all right. Okay, so we're going to play Kahoot, which will help. This will help to summarize some of the ideas today. Who wants to play Kahoot? Can you put your thumbs up? Do you want to play Kahoot? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's play this and let's start this thing. All right, remember, there's our pin. Game pin 846528. Can we get everyone in? And if you have half your name in there, please. So it makes it much easier to have fun. Who's coming first, second, third, and fourth? We have a little bit more fun in the Kahoot. Don't just put a letter, please. Okay. You put your half your name in. I think it makes it so much more personable and so much more fun. Yes. And then we can also have a bit of music. So we're going to share the sound and then we're going to have some music. Come on, 15. Let's get all the 30 in. Timers running out. Quick. I think we've got about 12 or 13 questions in this Kahoot. So a little bit shorter than last week. But this will help review some of the key ideas that we came through today. Don't forget, by the end of the day, if you have to leave early, can you please your feedback is so appreciated. It's very, very important that we have feedback so we can make improvements. Especially, is there one aspect that you felt, wow, you know, I kind of just mumbled, but this little idea that he explained made a lot of sense? And then tell me, please. All right. I'm not saying that the whole 2 hours was perfect and entertaining, but if there's one little part that moved you, then when I teach this again, maybe I can actually make that even better in the future. All right. Feedback is all about making things better. All right. So come on. We've got 22. Can we have some more, please? Are you ready, ski daddies? Come on. More. We want 20. There's 26 of you. Can we get 4 more, please? All right. Let's start this thing. Quick. Anyone more? Are you Aaron? Are you with us? Aaron, are you in the Kahoot? Kingston, are you in? Kimberly? All right. Brian, are you with us? Law, Axel, Esther, Key, Wei Bing. Okay, 24. Any more? We've got 2 more. John Lai, we're going to start this thing. Okay, let's start this. All right. Remember, this will help you revise what we've been covering. So should be very easy for you if you get this. Financial measures. Reports are effective in getting the attention of who? Who are they effective in getting the attention of? Come on, can we get all of you? Remember, I made it very, very clear. This is the why theme, the why theme. And can we go faster? 17. Who just, come on, it is all of the above. Come on, listen. Remember, CIO, CFO, CEO. It was always those 3. The C managers, those top managers, they're making those big decisions. They're in the C-suite. That's what I mean by C-suite. Mignon, very, very well. Me, Diva, in as very, very true or false. Conformance quality refers to performance of product service relative to design and product specifications. True or false? Remember the 2 different types of quality. But which one? Relative to design and product. Remember, this is not about relative to what the customer wants. Okay. So I think this one would be, of course, it's going to be true. Yes. Conformance. Remember, design quality is the other one, and that's what the customers care about. Okay, we've got 1 wrong on that, but let's get you all wrong, and this is going to be great. Mignon doing very well, followed by which of the following is not one of the 4 categories of quality costs? Internal failure, external. We talked about that. Remember the little needle in your teddy bear? Yes. Internal prevention, detection. I think you might know this one because we did cover this very, very well. Let's move this faster. How come there's only 22? Oh, we've got 2. How can you say prevention and external failure? All right, 22. Got that right. Can we get all of you right? Minya, what are you doing here? Wake up. Diva, KL, Mignon, Esha, doing very, very well. Esha, doing very well. 1. Okay, 4 out of 14. Which the following is not part of the internal failure costs, which are not part of the internal failure costs. Rework, inspection, spoilage, scrap. Okay, internal failure costs. Inspection, remember, it's part of prevention and appraisal. Remember, inspection is part of prevention and appraisal costs. Scrap is part of the internal failure costs. So that is rework, scrap. You know, if it cannot be reworked, that becomes scrap. Or as you cut things off, you know, it's scrap. That's internal failure. If you can make things with less scrap, then you can actually improve operations because they're more sustainable. KL, Diva, JQ, YQ doing very, very well. 5 out of 14. Which of the following is the opportunity costs that result from poor quality? Which of the following from poor quality? It's an opportunity cost. Remember, I talked about opportunity costs. You had to predict. You had to predict opportunity costs because it is an alternative that has not yet happened that you are trying to prevent. All right. It's not all of the above, not double protection, not high prices. It is contribution margin income foregone from lost sales. Remember, top line revenue, contribution margin. Okay. Remember the other opportunity cost was the lost opportunity to use all your machine capacity, right? Because demand has gone down. Okay, let's keep moving here. JQ, YQ is on a streak, 5 correct answers in a row. That is amazing. Well done, YQ. Great. Which of these non-financial measures of customer satisfaction? Which of these? Product failure rate, market share, delivery delays, all of the above. These are non-financial measures of customer satisfaction. Non-financial measure, all of the above. They are all non-financial measures. So in your strategy map on page 3, you may want to consider some of these items. Okay, JQ is on top, then YQ, Mini, and then KL. Very well. Okay, true or false? Cause effect diagrams, Gantt charts, Pareto diagrams are techniques for identifying and analyzing quality problems. You remember the Apple iPhone problem I told you about? Did they use a Gantt chart? Maybe they didn't. They used a cause and effect diagram. Okay, it is false. Remember, cause effect diagrams, yes. Pareto diagrams, yes. But Gantt charts, no. It's quality control charts. Remember I told you the 2 out of 3 that were within quality tolerance limits, and that 1 out of 3 was out of control. That is a quality control chart. A Gantt chart is something like a project measurement chart over time. It's got nothing to do with quality control. A tricky one there. I threw that one in there. You should have. Gantt chart is not even in chapter 19. If you find it, correct me if I'm wrong. Min Young, KY, JQ, well done. 5 of you got that. What is the non-financial measures of internal business prospect of photos copier problem? What is the non-financial measures of the internal business perspective? The non-financial measure of internal business perspective. All of the above. Very well done. That is very well done. All of them are non-financial measures. All right, so this is good rehearsal for you, good revision for you. Which of the following belongs to the learning and growth perspective of non-financial measures? The learning and growth, this is to do with people, this is to do with training, this is to do with, building a base. Remember the bottom of that pyramid. Remember the balanced scorecard pyramid. Financial, customer, internal, and then you got learning and growth. It's the bottom part. It's where you bring the people in. It's the culture. It's the information system. All right. So therefore, the only one here is really employee satisfaction. Okay. Employee satisfaction. All right. Surveys and satisfaction. That was a doozy. It really wasn't the perfect answer there. KY's done very well. True or false? A quality focus increases costs and reduces customer satisfaction. Come on, everyone, get this right, please. What have I been teaching you? Have I been an effective teacher? Please. Quality focus increases costs and reduces customer satisfaction. Does it really? False, of course. False. All right. A quality focus actually reduces costs. That's what we showed you. Prevention and appraisal, you spend more there, and you reduce internal failure, you reduce external failure. Remember, customer satisfaction is going to be influenced by external failure. So quality focus definitely helps to improve customer satisfaction. Min Young done very well. Mia's making a comeback with 3 in a row. Very well. 11 out of 14, we're nearly finished. Which of the following is part of the external failure cost? Which external failure cost? You should be able to get this right. Remember, the needle in the teddy bear, Don't put that near your eye because it may not be around afterwards. That may be gone, and then it's going to be huge warranty repair costs. Why? Because not only warranty, but then there's going to be lawsuit. There's going to be even worse. You want to avoid that at all costs. External failure. It's not about machine repairs, product testing, or testing new materials. It's warranty repair. You have to spend more because customers are bringing products back to be repaired. Okay, you take your teddy bear back to get the needle out. No, you're just never going to buy from that customer again. That's a really worst case scenario, and it did happen. Not in terms of the customer, it was actually the buyer that was buying to sell it into the market found that needle. Fortunately, it didn't get to the market. Well, true or false? Product success rate is one of the non-financial measures of customer satisfaction. Product success rate, non-financial measures of customer satisfaction. Remember, in page 4 of your assignment, you have to talk about measures, thinking about the measures at different stages of the scorecard. Remember, and yes, this is false. Product success rate is a non-financial measure of the internal. Okay, it's the internal production. The opposite of product success is a product reject. Okay, all right. So maybe that's a tricky one because success, what do you mean by success? It's very hard to define. We're going to be more specific when we're talking about measures. We've got 13 out of 14, we've got 2 left and it's top of the hour. Non-financial measures are useful indicators of future long-term performance. I think you can get this one right. Non-financial measures are useful indicators of future long-run performance. I think everyone can get this one right because non-financial measures, you know the answer to this one. This one is so right. Yes! Oh, we did it! Yes! Yes! We did it! Yes! 22 is amazing. This is so cool. Can't believe it. Well done. And the last one, Isha, you're the last one to come. And we're done very well. Isha, YQ, KY, Min Young, JQ, all done very well. And the last one, 14 out of 14. What happened to the teddy bear? What happened to the teddy bear? Can we get this one to finish off today? At least you'll remember this lecture forever whenever you see a teddy bear. Can we get all of you on the same page here? Oh, come on! There's a needle in the teddy bear. There was a needle in the teddy bear. Oh, I don't believe it how 4 of you did not get it. I think you're playing with me here. All right. Okay, there you have it. Thank you so much for coming today. Can you give your feedback in the link? Now, it's very important. What we learned today, really appreciate you coming in and having fun. Got to have fun. You have fun. It makes it memorable. We had some video. We had a teddy bear. Thank you for coming. It's not our teddy bear. It's Gutatama. I don't know how you spell it properly. Gutatama. Thank you for joining us today. Say bye-byes to Gutatama. And please give your feedback. Appreciate your feedback in the link. Many feedback. It's very important so we can make improvements. Always want to improve and bring greater experience to your workshop and your learning in management accounting. And don't forget to check in. I can give more feedback on your assignment. Please, in the chat room, give your feedback on the assignment and happy to respond to chats so you have much more clarity on what to do for your assignment. Happy to do that. Appreciate your feedback. If you just answer 2 or 3 of the questions, and that's fine. If just one of them, that's fine. You don't have to write everything in. And of course, it's anonymous. So appreciate anything that can make your experience as an important student in this management accounting unit even better. Your learning experience is the most critical thing in our success in helping you. Okay, so I appreciate that. If you have any final questions, I'm going to hang around until everyone leaves. And if you want to ask me questions, I'm here. Okay.
Sir, I have a question regarding the assignment.
Hi, David.
Right. So for the first part, right, the comparison between the two businesses, is it, do we only just put it in a table, or is it okay if there's like a paragraph at the bottom explaining the comparison?
Which page you're talking about? Page 1?
Which one? Yes.
Oh, do both.
Okay.
Do both. Yeah, set up a table, but then you have a paragraph just, summarizing key parts that you want to, pull out between the companies. It's important to have a little bit of a dialogue to just explain, what the table you're pulling out means. And someone did ask me about, well, your audit seems to be out of date because when I go online, the factory has 30,000 workers instead of 500. You've got to be very careful. You probably need to double check what is online, because sometimes factories will say they've got something, but they're misrepresenting what they really are. So just that's just a small point. You're not going to, I'm not going to mark you down because you put the wrong facts in that table, but that table is a starting point for you to just get a sense of, what are you comparing here?
Thank you.
Welcome. More questions?
All right, thank you, sir.
Oh, most welcome. Most welcome. Appreciate your feedback. Just finishing up. This is the end of the Kahoot. Isha on top, followed by YQ and Min Young. Very, very well done. And I forgot to put this in earlier, but very, very well done. And we got this recorded and locked in for the end of the session. So great effort, all of you. Over 10,000 for 14 questions. Excellent. Well done, Isha, YQ, and Young. Excellent.